Has OpenAI achieved AGI with its O3 model? Let's break it down, starting with how well it did in math. Now, before we get into that, you are going to be seeing a lot of graphs like this that benchmark performance. What does that even mean? Benchmarking is the process of setting a standard by measuring something so that you can tell how different players compare to one another. In this particular case, that benchmark is the accuracy with which something is able to solve the problems in AIME's or American Invitational Mathematics exams problem set. Now, OpenAI conveniently left out the benchmark number for humans, which is about 33 to 40% for this particular exam. And this is the feeder exam for the Math Olympiad, so it is a serious exam. But OpenAI was like, Math Olympiad, that's for kids. Let's turn up the dial for difficulty a notch, because we don't want peace, we want problems, always. So they took their models to Epoch AI's Frontier Math problem set. Now, this is a set of mathematical problems that will take hours or even days for expert mathematicians to solve. Now, for most of these charts, you're going to be seeing two bars, one which is darker blue and lower, and the other which is higher and lighter blue. The darker blue bar represents the model that you and I are going to be interacting with when they are made public. The settings are average and tame. The higher lighter blue bar represents the model basically unchained. Take all the time you need, all the compute, all the memory, but just give me your best performance on a problem. Now, I see you coders getting a bit too comfortable there, so let me point you to the raging flame that is ablaze underneath all of your collective buttocks. Now, this chart represents the ELO score of OpenAI models on the competitive programming platform Codeforces. An ELO score is a measure of how likely one player is to win against another player in a competitive game-like environment. And interestingly enough, ELO scores are how dating sites like Bumble, Tinder, and Hinge measure the attractiveness of their profiles based on who swipes on who. This chart specifically shows how OpenAI's models have been getting better at competitive programming over time. And you're like, applause, that's great, that's incredible, good for you guys. Until you realize, and this is when the applause falls a bit silent, that their latest model's score is better than the ELO scores of some of the best competitive programmers in the world out there today, including, but not limited to, the chief scientific officer at OpenAI himself. If you're in software engineering or computer science, at this point you're probably thinking, I am pretty much cooked, I should probably study something else. Well, I'm here to tell you there is nowhere to run, because take a look at this chart right here. The GPQA Diamond benchmarks how accurately experts in the field are able to answer PhD level questions. OpenAI, as if to collectively save face on behalf of all of humanity, left out the data point for human levels of PhD performance, and that is a 75%. Now, it doesn't take a PhD to know that if you are a PhD holder, you are cooked to medium well. And now for the moment you've all been waiting for, is the O3 model with all of its capabilities an AGI model? But before I answer that, let's see if you are good enough to beat an AGI model. This was one of the tasks that was provided as part of the problem set for ArcAGI to OpenAI's O3. Take a look at this fourth image right here, this fourth input set, and let me know if you can figure out what the output might be. Take your time, this is not trivial. Now, determining whether or not a system is AGI is a very difficult problem, and therefore, the foundation that determines it, ArcAGI, was founded by none other than Francois Chollet, the founder of Keras, the open source deep learning library. And ArcAGI is tasked with coming up with problems that could determine how close an entity has come to this hypothetical AGI. Now, there's two key characteristics of these kind of problems. Number one, they are open domain problems, meaning they aren't restricted to simply being a math problem or a pattern recognition problem or an image classification problem. They are all of the above all at once, because that's how humans solve problems. And number two, these problems have to be unprecedented, never before seen, because if a problem is already out there in the public, then the chances are an AI model will have already seen it before, will have been trained on it, and can solve it in a heartbeat. And this is how OpenAI's O3 model did on that problem set, a whopping 87.5%. And this is significant because for the first time ever, it has crossed the threshold for what a human level of accuracy is, which is 85%. Now, does this mean OpenAI's O3 model is AGI? I don't know. Probably not, but asking whether or not an entity is an AGI entity is a non-trivial question. It's a bit like the chicken and the egg problem, where the only accurate way to determine whether an entity is AGI is by another entity that is already AGI.